Hey folks, Dale Davidson here. Gotten a lot of new clients in lately, and they all have these living trust or revocable trust. And the problem I have run into is that they're either not funded or partially funded. Okay, now these things only work if they're fully funded. So today's video is how to fund a living trust and why it's critical to do it while you are alive, and I'm going to add while you are competent. Okay, so you set up a living trust. You've gone to the attorney or you've gone wherever and you've got your living trust or revocable trust, and that's great. You've taken the first step, because the living trust is a very powerful tool that will help you out tremendously in avoiding probate and management in the event of a disability. But there's a critical step that many people overlook, and that's funding the trust. So folks come in and they'll say, I've got this living trust. And I'll say, that's great. What you got in it? I don't know. I tell you what, pull out your checkbook and let's look at the title on your checks. Oh, it just says Dale Davidson. It doesn't have Dale Davidson Living Trust. Well, it's probably not your trust then. Okay. Well, let's look up on the public website and see if your house is in the trust. What's your address? 123 Main Street. Yep. Sorry, that's in your name, Dale, not in your trust. So what I basically have here is a document that's not funded and has nothing in it and does you no good whatsoever. Okay? Because you've got to fund it. Funding your trust means transferring assets, checking accounts, savings accounts, stocks, bonds, brokerage accounts, houses, real estate, whatever it may be. You don't have to transfer cars in, okay? And never, ever, ever transfer a 401k or an IRA into one. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes, okay? But you've got to transfer it, all your personal property, because what does funding the transfer mean? Funding says that on your death, whatever's in the trust avoids probate. If you have something in your individual name on your death, like a house or a checking account or something like that, it has to go through probate. Okay? If one of the big reasons for creating the trust is to avoid probate, we've done nothing because we haven't funded it. Well, how do you fund it? Real estate. Well, you got to prepare a deed. You got to say, okay, I have a deed to my house on Main Street, and so I'm going to say, Dale Davidson hereby deeds my house on Main Street to Dale Davidson Living Trust. Go take it down to Thomas County and record it. Pay my $30 or whatever it is. It's in my trust now. Okay? What we do a lot of times, we make a practice of it, is that if you come into our office and we create the revocable trust for you, we've already done the deed. And we've got the deed ready for you to sign when you sign the revocable trust. We also do just a quick and dirty assignment of all your personal property, whatever it may be, into your trust. That's funding your trust. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that your bank accounts or investment accounts and things like that are funded or transferred into your trust. You're going to have to go to the bank and talk to your banker and say, now I need my bank to recognize that I have this, that Dale Davidson has this revocable trust, and I want to transfer my checking account into that revocable trust so that if I die, this bank account doesn't have to go through probate, or my Schwab account, or my A.G. Edwards account, whatever brokerage account I've got. Now, a lot of times banks will say, oh, well, you'll need to set up a new bank account and we'll have to have a new tax ID number. Well, the IRS says no, because this is a trust, a grantor trust, and because you're the owner of the trust during your lifetime, you don't need a separate tax ID number. The bank says, well, the IRS might not request it or require it, but we do from our procedures. So a lot of times you have to jump through that hoop. It's inconvenient, I know, but it's worth doing it, okay? Now, life insurance and retirement accounts. Life insurance always passes outside of probate unless you've got a beneficiary designation that says to the estate of Dale Davidson. And that would be a big mistake. Never ever do that. Retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs pass by beneficiary designation unless you don't have one, or it says paid to the estate of Dale Davidson, which would be a huge mistake. So here's a pro tip. Never ever ever fund your revocable trust or your living trust without first consulting with an experienced trust lawyer who understands the income tax consequences of funding a trust with a retirement account or an IRA or a 401k or whatever it may be. Now, you can fund them, yes, but don't do it without professional advice because the tax consequences could be disastrous. Okay? We already talked about personal property where we just do a simple assignment, say all my personal property, my furniture, my watch, my jewelry, whatever it is, my guns, whatever I've got is now in my trust. Okay? And then what about my business interest? I own this law office. Well, if it's just me, that's not a problem. But what happens if I have partners? So if I have an LLC, which I do, then there may be an operating agreement which prohibits me or tells me what I can and cannot do as far as transferring it. Maybe I can't transfer it to a trust. Maybe upon my death it automatically goes to my partner. Whatever it may be, you've got to look at that. Same way with a corporation. You may have a stock restriction agreement that prohibits you from making certain transfers. You just got to look at that. And likewise, if you're an S corporation, you got to be really careful about transferring S corporation stock into a trust. Okay, it can go in there, no problem, but you got to make sure that the trust complies with the S corporation rules under the Internal Revenue Code. So again, don't fund trust with any kind of business interest without first consulting with somebody who is competent, a lawyer who's competent in trust and also in tax matters and knows about S corporations and those kinds of things. Otherwise, you could get in a world of tax trouble. So I've already mentioned, one of the big reasons for putting together these revocable trust or living trust is the avoidance of probate. And so, we're going to explore that a little bit more along some other issues. So why is it important to fund your trust while you're alive and while you're competent? Again, one of the big reasons for creating these kinds of trusts is that you control them during your lifetime. Well, you actually control whatever's inside the trust during your lifetime. But if you become incapacitated or on your death, then you don't have to go through probate with respect to any of those assets. Because those assets are in a trust, they move outside the probate process. Again, we bypass probate with a revocable trust. Revocable trusts or living trusts are private. With a probate, we have to file the will, we have to file the petition, and we have to disclose certain things. Sometimes we have to do inventories and accountings. Not so with the trust. That's a totally private document, only to be shared between the individuals who are a party to it. That would be you as the grantor, whoever your trustees are, and whoever the beneficiaries are. Nobody else, okay? Completely private. We touched a little bit about incapacity planning. Now, if it's in a trust, then it's outside your probate, so the probate court really has no power or authority over the trust. So if you have to have a guardianship or conservatorship appointed for you, then whoever's in charge of the trust would manage those assets. Whatever assets are in your individual name, the guardian and conservator would manage over here. Fund the trust during your lifetime and while you are able to avoid probate, keep your privacy, and protect against incapacity. You can avoid having a guardian and conservator appointed for you. So maybe you didn't fully fund your trust. So if an asset has to go through probate, there is a potential risk that whatever your wishes are in the trust aren't going to be followed because you've got to go through the probate process first. Maybe you've got a revocable trust over here, or living trust, but you don't have any kind of will here because you thought that trust was a will substitute, which it is not. Okay? So now your personal property over here, or whatever you've got outside, goes by intestacy, dying without a will. So the state's going to say who gets your property, not your heirs. You have a probate of a will, you have a will, let's say, and everything pours over into the trust. Again, you've got the potential of an heir caveating or protesting the will for whatever reason, and so it's a potential that your wishes will not be followed because you're having to go through a different process than what you've already created in the revocable trust. So, tips and tricks for funding your living trust or your revocable trust. Get organized. Okay? Do a roadmap for your heirs, like I like to call it. Okay? Make a detailed list of all your assets. You can say, well, fixtures, furniture, all that. Your real estate, it's easy to know, well, I've got this house, whatever real estate you've got. You know your bank accounts because you get statements at least monthly, if not monthly, then quarterly. Okay? Talk to your insurance guy, make sure that you've got all of those policies together. And wherever your investments are, make sure you've got all those statements and put it in a spiral notebook, okay? And get it organized. There's your roadmap for your heirs. So if something happens to you, all they have to do is pick up that book and they know exactly where your assets are. Work with a professional, okay? Work with a lawyer who knows trust, knows estates, knows probate, knows tax laws, because there are tax ramifications with respect to all of these funding of these different trusts. Okay, not bad unless you're dealing with IRAs and 401ks and that such. So once you've got it all together, you've got everything transferred in. Review what you've got annually. I mean, people change, things change, families change. We've got deaths, divorces, births. All of those things might impact your estate. Just check back regularly and make sure, yeah, I'm pretty sure I want old Dale to have his share still. Maybe not. Okay? And always, never ever forget your pour over will. A trust is never, ever a substitute for a will. You must always have a will as kind of a catch-all for anything that may have been missed or intentionally left out that would have to go through probate. Okay? So, bottom line is creating a living trust it's a great thing, but only creating it and not properly funding it is a big mistake. Funding is what makes that trust work. Okay. It makes that trust effective. So without funding, your estate is going to have to go through probate. That's an unnecessary step. That's a more costly step, okay? But if you get organized and work with somebody to get your assets funded in there, get an attorney to draft the deed for you and get it filed, that's an easy step. Funding now gives you peace of mind. And you're still in control. It's just out of your name individually into your name as trustee of your trust. Your family doesn't have to worry about going through probate. If a guardian needs to be appointed for you, they don't have to worry about having to post a bond for those assets that are in the trust. The bottom line is funding is what makes your trust effective. Hey folks, thank you for watching today. I appreciate everybody out there. Thank you so very, very much. Hey, check out this video on trust. It's going to explain a little bit more in detail and exactly how they work. But hey, don't forget to fund your trust. Until next time, have a great day.